Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. I'm Ahmed Tarek. I'm Android engineer at agoda.com and I have been working in mobile development for the last 7 years. Today I will take you to a quick flight with Flutter to know what is Flutter, what is the language Flutter uses to write apps, what is the best features in Flutter, how Flutter can increase your productivity. But before we start, I would say that I will not dive deep in any technical details. Just I want to highlight on the best things in Flutter and answer the question, why Flutter? Great, let's start. Maybe some of you have already heard about Flutter, but let me give you a short intro about Flutter for who didn't hear about it before. What is Flutter? As we see here in this slide, Flutter is built by Google. Flutter is a UI toolkit for building native applications. Actually, Flutter is a cross-platform solution, so you can use it to build mobile apps, web apps, and desktop apps. So all of these from a single code base. You may wonder, when did they release Flutter? There was an initial release on May 2017, but actually the first stable release 1.0 was in December 2018, while the latest release right now is 1.12.13. Flutter is free and open source, and if you check it out on GitHub, you will find it has almost 90k stars. I think that's a big number of fans. As you already did know, Flutter is a UI toolkit. So what is the language Flutter uses to write Flutter apps? Actually, Flutter uses a programming language called Dart. So the question now, what is Dart? Dart also made by Google, and they optimized it for building user interfaces. If you are coming from Android or iOS, you already know about XML and storyboard, and how much is painful while you need to maintain your UI source code in a markup language or even with a layout editor. But with Dart, it's different, it's better. So you can do everything in your app in one language. And I found that gives me more control on the UI, and also it makes my UI more dynamic. For example, I can do A/B testing on my UI easily by having multivariants of UI, whatever that UI component is small or big. One of the best features in Flutter is the hot reload, and that beautiful feature comes from Dart. You know, in iOS or Android, you need to build and run your app every time you do a small change in your code, and that's time consuming. But with Flutter and Dart, you can do hot reload. As we see here in this demo, hot reload is super fast. Just make your changes and click the hot reload button. Then few milliseconds and everything will be updated on your mobile screen or simulators. Definitely that increases your productivity. For example, imagine the developer and the designer are sitting together to make the user interface pixel perfect, as they design it and as they want it. That can be done so fast with hot reload. Amazing. So with hot reload, no need to wait for Xcode build in iOS or Gradle build in Android. I'm not going to dive deep in hot reload and how it works, but I would you know this amazing feature comes from Dart. One more thing about Dart. Dart is easy to learn and has a familiar syntax. Actually, its syntax isn't different than the syntax of languages like Kotlin and Swift. In this slide, you can compare Dart to other languages and see how much it's similar, declaring a class, variable, and function. Still asking yourself why Flutter? Let's walk through some of the big benefits you will get from Flutter. Single code base is something very important for all stakeholders in a company or business. You can save a lot of resources on different levels by having a single code base. When you develop a new feature in your Flutter app with a single code base, you don't need to do it twice. You don't need to do it one time for Android and one time for iOS. Only one time for your Flutter app. Also testing, QA, automation, CI, and most of jobs you need to do. You need to do it one time instead of twice. Even crashes and bugs. Most of the time, they will be the same in Android and iOS. I'm not saying you will not do anything platform specific in your development process, but the majority of your team jobs will be done one time. Your productivity in Flutter will be much higher than native Android development or iOS development, not only because of the hot reload, but also because of the Flutter widget catalog. This catalog has a lot of ready and handy collection of visual, structure, platform, and interactive widgets. It helps you to create beautiful apps faster. While on this page, you can browse widgets by category. But here is a series of animated videos on YouTube. They call it Flutter Widget of the Week. You can also enjoy watching this series to know about different Flutter widgets, how to use it, and many smart tips. Let's open a video and see how it looks.
Flutter has a lot of widgets to help with explicit animations, ones that you, the developer, code up. But there are also widgets for implicit animations, those that animate changes for you. A good one to know is Animated Container. You can build it once with a particular attribute, like color, and when you rebuild it with a different value, say in response to a set state call, Animated Container performs a linear interpolation between the two values. And it's more than just colors. You can animate borders, border radii, background images, shadows, gradients, shapes, padding, width, height, alignment transforms, and more. The length of the animation is controlled by the duration parameter. And you can also specify your own curve to customize the effect. There are a bunch of other widgets to help with implicit animation.
For me, I always enjoy watching this kind of videos because it's animated and short. So in 1 or 2 minutes maximum, you can know about a new widget. Flutter has native performance. It compiles all of your Dart code to native ARM machine code using Dart's native compilers. Therefore, Flutter gives you full native performance on both iOS and Android. Flutter documentation is super helpful. Let's go to flutter.dev and see how it looks. As we see here, we have many sections like how to get started, the widget catalog, API docs, tutorials, samples, and videos. But let's search on something like a widget, for example, the stack widget. Here in the first result, as we see here, we have a full description for this widget. So we can understand how this widget works, and also we can watch this video to know more about this widget. And here we have a screenshot for this stack layout. So we can imagine how children inside this widget will be. And also here we have a sample so we can know how to construct this widget. Another screenshot here for another case and sample. And here as usual we have the constructor sections. So we can know what is the constructors we have for this widget, what is the optional parameter and required parameter for this constructor. And also here we have all existing properties for this widget. So I think Flutter documentation is super helpful. You can depend on it on your learning or in your daily job. Next, Flutter Community. I want to use a Flutter Community page on flutter.dev. One of the best things in Flutter development, the Flutter team always tries to get feedback from developers. Here they encourage you to vote up GitHub issues and send your feedback, so they can know the issues that are more important for developers. And if you want to be updated and get the latest announcement, you can subscribe to Google Groups. As you see here, there are many channels to meet Flutter developers, to ask them or to share your experience. Also, there are 2 publications on Medium. This one by Flutter team. Many updates, announcement, and articles here. And the second publication by the Flutter community. You can check it out to read more about advanced topics. If you are familiar with Android Studio, IntelliJ, or Visual Studio Code, you can start creating a new Flutter project by installing the Flutter SDK. Then install the Flutter and Dart plugins, and that's it. Although Flutter supports different IDEs, it's IDE independent. So from your command line, you can build and run your app. run tests, launch or create emulators, and many commands as you see here. That makes your CI setup easy. Also, here is a section on Flutter Docs that guides you to release Android and iOS apps. And here is a page about continuous delivery with Flutter. Now, let me share with you some cool things. According to the official LinkedIn blog, Flutter is the fastest growing skills among software engineers on LinkedIn. That means many developers in the world are interested in Flutter, and they already started to learn it. Another cool thing, the state of Octoverse. It's an annual report by GitHub. So in the report in 2019, they mentioned that Flutter repo got the second place of the fastest growing open source projects. But if Flutter got the second place in the state of Octoverse, Dart got the first place of the fastest growing languages on GitHub. If you got interested in Flutter, I think now you want to know about products that already use Flutter. Here many products already use Flutter, like Google Ads, Google Stadia, Google Assistant, Alibaba, Square, Philips, the New York Times, Grab, and many others. Amazing! That was a really quick flight with Flutter. So what's your next step to start learning Flutter? I would recommend to go to dart.dev and try Dart by yourself in your browser without installing the Dart SDK. Also, you can go to flutter.dev and try Flutter by yourself without installing the Flutter SDK as well. Actually, that depends on something called Dartpad. Let's open Dartpad and write a small program here. Then we can click Run to see the result. In addition to this, you can check more Dart and Flutter samples from here. After that, you can install the Flutter SDK by following the instructions here. Next, go to Flutter Code Labs and follow the first code lab to write your first Flutter app. Finally, I would recommend going to rewinderlake.com/flutter to read more advanced Flutter topics. Thank you for attending my talk. If you have any questions, leave it in a comment. See you.